hey, look at me, I'm an adult. I'm going to talk about school and education. No, I want to talk about film school as someone has film school. It's not as generic as that topic as it is probably in the US. No, I did a Bachelor of Media and Communication focusing on film studies as my major, minor in creative writing at Swinburne University. I graduated 2021? 2020, yeah, 2021, December. Because obviously pandemic delays in graduation ceremonies, that kind of shit. I basically had finished school 8 months before I graduated. So, great. But still, I wanted to talk about film school, mostly because I always see videos about it and people being like, you don't have to go to film school, just read books, just watch movies, like 70s fucking directors who were watching like Hitchcock and like French cinema and new wave and shit like that, and being like learning from them, or like even those French new wave directors learning from like directors, American directors post World War II, and being like, again, all these Hitchcock films, and being like, oh, so this is how he did this, and you can see how his style developed like this, and we're film critics, so we're going to write about film, but then we're also going to make film and stuff like that. There's a lot of different avenues in terms of becoming a filmmaker. That's not exactly the avenue I've gone for. I haven't reached that spin in my life yet where I can afford to be a filmmaker. As much as I would love to make a feature-length film at some stage in my life, I don't make YouTube to compensate for that, as you could probably tell, because I haven't made a short film on this channel for years. It's not a thing I do anymore. Do I come up with ideas for films and stuff like that? Yes, but that's beside the point. I want to talk about the benefits of what I got out of film school. This case, again, I went for the broader topic of a Bachelor of Media and Communication, which obviously allows you to do like social media and journalism and advertising and all those different media avenues. Turns out I hated the professional stuff about it, because you had to do that as core subjects for my classes, and core subjects being the first year, like you have to do these 4 subjects so you can pass into the next year, and 2 of them were communication subjects, and they weren't bad subjects. I just didn't connect with them. One of my teachers was fantastic. I've actually interviewed her prior to this video. Jessica Swan. So she was a good lecturer, and that was a good class, but it wasn't my thing. But it's interesting, looking at that kind of stuff and seeing what my hopes and dreams into what I wanted to do when I went to film school, when I went to university, and what I ended up doing. Because, of course, I chose avenue-wise my ATAR course avenue. I had 2 avenues to go through for Swinburne. Basically, I could do the film and television course, which at the time was a 90 ATAR. What a bunch of bullshit. The ATAR for Australians, for non-Australians, is out of 100. The higher ATAR is usually the more you've put into your exam work and the better results you've gotten. I think I got either 60 or 70. I didn't care. I couldn't care less. I still tried. I still did it. I benefited from doing it, but I was more into folio stuff. I was an art student. I was doing film studies in photography and stuff like that in my latter 2 years of high school, as well as doing like literature and English and history and unfortunately math, but the boring, easy math, because math by the time I got to year 10 was like, I don't want to do this shit anymore. It's fucking annoying. And I dropped science because I realized that I preferred media than science, because I wanted to do physics and chemistry. Turns out I wasn't good at it, so as much as I had a passion for it, I'm like, yeah, nah, this ain't gonna happen. I wanted to be a forensic scientist. I then decided to, because my brother was in a media class, I joined that after the first week of classes. Actually, it was the end of the previous year, because you had a week of testing out your classes, and I changed mine to media, and I came up with ideas for films and stuff, and it turns out you could learn and study films. That was probably my best thing in terms of studying films, was those 2 years of high school, because I had great teachers. Another who I've interviewed, Emma McCulloch, fantastic teacher. That was in high school. So you get to university, and I was like, I want to be a filmmaker. And again, the folio work was like, well, you didn't get the ATAR, but you can use your folio to get in. And I had the opportunity to get in. I could have accepted it. I declined instead and went for the media and communications thing. Talk about changing your life prospects immediately. Because the folio thing would have meant 2 years of a diploma course, which was like, I think it was studying like theory for 2 years straight and then doing 4 years of practical. And I wanted to do the practical stuff. Turns out, buy a camera. It's so much easier. Immediate suggestion: if you want to do practical stuff, like literally just buy books about, learning how to craft films and make films, watch a bunch of films, watch documentaries about making films, just study people's styles, watch YouTube. There's a lot of different shit. There's like websites and stuff like that go into this kind of stuff that have film schools. Film schools in terms of people who have the experience. A lot of that is really valuable information. It doesn't hurt if you put it in the degree of actually going to a school and getting a degree, because it also doesn't really hurt to have a bachelor degree of some kind or whatever, or even a master's. My girlfriend has a master's in design, for Christ's sake, She already has the talent. She doesn't need she didn't need to do a master's, but she did it anyway. It's like, why not? Sure, So there's the element where, yeah, I could have learned to do the practical stuff, but I just had a camcorder. It was like, yeah, sure, it's a shitty camera, but I've been using it all these years of YouTube. It still works fine now. So obviously I went the media and communication. It was a 4-year course rather than a 6-year course. It ended up being basically a 6-year course because of the pandemic, which I was fine with. Gave me more time to actually do work and, other stuff. It has helped my life path better. But I chose that after a consultation with Dad, because he was like, look, if the film stuff doesn't work, because again, being in the film industry in Australia kind of sucks, at least then you haven't wasted 6 years of your life and you have 4 years instead where you have a more broader range of stuff. And it gives you a broader range. I was able to study comic books and journalism and advertising and all these different little avenues, whether they were like one course in the span of like 4 to 5 years or not, and maybe it's something that's buried in the back of my memory. It's something I still remember, For me, I actually realized within my first year of uni that my priority, the thing I loved the most, was studying history, especially film history. I like that kind of stuff. I like seeing not just behind the scenes documentaries, but I like learning how things came to be. I had a whole class about like Asian films and the history of Australian films and the history of Hollywood. It was really interesting stuff. I had good teachers. I had good practices, My stuff became more about studying theory and studying history and stuff like that, about writing essays and being critically analysis bullshit about movies and about history about movies. And that's where my jam comes from, hence why my library of movies behind me is such a broad range, stretching all the way to the earliest films imaginable to the most current stuff that I care to buy on physical. So I like having the variety. That's what's helped me. So I think when it comes to film school, I'm not going for the topic of, oh, you got to learn this and you got to learn that at film school. It's like, no, do whatever the hell you want, realistically. I went with the topics I wanted to learn, but for me, that's less of what has molded me. Most of it blurred in because it was all kind of the same stuff, like general topics of history of this, history of that. Here's some creative writing, here's some creative avenues. The creative stuff was like, I had a whole class about editing and a whole class about, was it even editing? It was editing and sound design was one of my classes, weirdly. Like, one of my classes was, God, it's weird that I don't remember what most of my classes was, which, kind of a bad thing, but, I mean, a lot of the stuff I learned in terms of, film tech and stuff, I learned through high school. Because I did not just media, but I did music. So I learned about a lot of like devices and tech that you use to produce audio and to do film stuff, or just to do music. Because it was a music production and recording. I learned a lot of stuff that I use now from that. Weirdly, so university didn't really benefit me in that. I have a degree, but I can just talk my ass off about films. assuming I have enough research up my ass. So it's also about how much you can comprehend, how much you can remember. My main benefit that I got out of film school, because as much as I still loved going to it, I still loved the classes and what I learnt. My main benefit was my social dynamics and where certain things got me. In terms of if you can highlight key moments of your own experiences in life, that can usually help. For me, my first week of uni was vastly important because most of my friends who I'm friends with now, I met in that first week. One of my other friends, who's one of my best friends, I met a few weeks later. This is all still in regards to film stuff, especially because after a couple of years, one of my classes involved doing for me, I chose a winter term, which was actually like 6 weeks rather than the regular 12 to 13. And you could go out and do some practical. The whole point being basically just do an internship. And that was cool because like it encourages you as a person who has been studying this for years to figure out what you want to do and go do it in the field, and it can be part of your course, give you some extra points kind of stuff. So my benefit there was that I worked with my uncle. Of course, the argument of nepotism is an argument of nepotism. I'm just beneficial in the aspect of I happen to have one family member who happens to work in the media industry, which was enough for my grandparents to be like, hey, sure you want to be in the film industry, I'm like, your uncle's in it and it's not a great industry, but now he works at a radio station. Hey, how about that? And he's pretty high up there in terms of what you do. So I was able to get a position there for the 6 weeks. Unfortunately, 3 of those weeks were in lockdown. Hey, pandemic 2020. But the first 3 weeks I was out in the field and filming stuff. We filmed a concert that was inside an art hall. So we were constantly filming in different areas, setting up different forms of equipment. I was on some cameras. Sometimes I was working microphones. I was working with a band as well, like an orchestra, and having literally grown up learning how to play multiple instruments and being in bands, I was like, I know how this works. I can help. I'm not going to play anything, but like I knew how to operate things better from my experiences. So for me, a lot of my benefits were the fact that a lot of the stuff I learned throughout high school worked well into my my university and post-university life. So that was one of the few experiences I had with filming outside of filming a couple of like sport games. And then the other half of that, 6-week period was just editing audio clips that would be broadcast on radio. So I had great visual stuff and then I had audio stuff. I had a good variety of practical stuff. That was basically as far as my practical stuff went outside of an experimental film class, a class where I learned how to just do audio stuff, which wasn't great. I gotta be honest, the amount of times I kept asking, how do you make a sound like it's way over there, but it's right here next to the mic? It's like, oh, the answer's pretty simple. Put the mic over there, and then make the sound over here. Sometimes the bloody teacher would just be like, just turn the volume down. Now, of course, you can add effects. I mean, you could still add effects back then, but I liked authenticity rather than add a effect to make it sound like it's in a tunnel. That sounds boring. Just do it yourself. But then turns out my dream job is not working in Foley. Who would have thought? Same as experimental film. That is as pretentious a class as you can get. So that was actually mostly not experimental film in terms of like surrealism and David Lynch. It was more of, hey, learn how to use a 360-degree camera. It'll be worthless in a couple of years, but that's okay. See, there's shit like that where we've got enough technology now that we can change and do different things. Like that class now would probably include drone work and stuff like that because that's experimental. It's like, it's just a different kind of camera, but of course they were also trying to say, oh, use this kind of stuff and make narratives out of it as well. Yeah. Not always a great idea because even the teacher doesn't always know how to work certain things. So that's why I prefer theory and doing essays rather than practical stuff in class, because practical stuff I can usually just learn myself. I can just watch a YouTube video. Usually it helps a hell of a lot more. So there's a good suggestion. If you find what you want to learn, then maybe you figure out, do I prioritize this for film school? Do I prioritize this for my own, learnings? Go to a library, buy books. I've bought a lot of film books about that are film essays that analyze film and the craft of filmmaking, and then ones that are about, hey, here's how a camera works. Hey, I've got like 3 different books about cinematography. Just because I can, it's a lot cheaper than doing a university degree. But at the same time, I also learnt a lot of that and learnt what I wanted to do because I went to film school. So some of it was in retrospect, I could have just done this because it's cheaper. But at the same time, the experience I got was invaluable by going to film school. The people I met, the things I was able to do. Again, I wouldn't have the friends I have now if not for film school. I probably wouldn't have met my girlfriend that I'm with now. I would not have literally so much of this, and the life I have now would not exist if not for the fact that I went to film school. Like, the fact that I met the Cinemaniacs, that I go to that kind of stuff, like that, sure, was still I went to a certain store that Lee worked at, and he was like, hey, you should come to my film thingy. We've got a film group with these 2 lecturers from Swinburne are coming to do a presentation. And I realized that it was only then and there that I realized, those are literally my tutors. So I figured, hey, that'd be funny, seeing my tutors outside of school and then seeing them get hammered. When you're like 18, that's the funniest shit in the world. But, why not? But still, it was that if I feel like if I didn't go to film school, or if I hadn't have gone to Swinburne and known those particular teachers, that Lee mentioning them would have been invaluable. It would have been a waste of my, it's like, it doesn't matter to me. Like, if not for them popping up as names, I'd be like, maybe I should go to this film thingy. My friend, who also was in the same classes as me, had no interest. So he didn't go. I didn't really want to go because I'm like, I don't really, because, going outside, being social, yuck, It wasn't Lee, yuck, no, it was I don't like being social, But then, when he mentioned the teachers, I was like, shit, that could be funny. And it turns out it was great, and I've been going a lot of the time ever since. Not all the time, but a lot of the time. And because of it, I've met Caitlin and Phil. I've met one of my subscribers who happens to go there. I've met a lot of people. I buy a lot of Blu-rays from them now. So that's become a, stepping stone. That's just a domino effect of stuff. That's, again, the main benefit. A lot of people would have a contrast to me. Some people would be like, film school taught me how to do this and taught me how to do that and whatever. But the thing is, with art, as much as there's the technological element of film, where, again, this is how a camera works, yeah, read the manual, there is an element to art and creating art that you can't always get from school, but you also can. It's the same as if you were going to learn how to paint, again, regular art school. They would still be like, here is this person and this is their style. Let's study that. Now let's break down their style. Let's adapt it into our own stuff. Let's completely change it. And then something like that. I don't know. I did art in grade 6. Ta-da! I learned how to paint The Scream. Turns out there were 3 different versions, and we didn't know that until my parents went to Norway. Who'd have thought it? So, was it Norway? I don't know. They went to one of those European countries and they went to the museum, and there's 3 different versions. Who'd have thought it? On 3 different styles of painting. I think one was like a sketch, one was like an oil painting, one's black and white. So, did you know that? There are 3 different versions of Edvard Munch's The Scream. Hey, I have painted my own version. I'm not a good painter. My girlfriend, on the other hand, is exceedingly talented. I've got one of her paintings in the theatre room. If you've seen my theatre room tour, you've seen it. It's on the shelf. It's crazy that people can just do that. But I'm not the kind of person who's like, I want to do that with a computer. Quick, do the AI. I'm not doing that bullshit. I still respect artists. I respect the fact that I can't do it myself. I just find the fun that I can make thumbnails, and I'm going to be like, hey, look at these shadings. Wow, look, it glows. It's got shadows. Definition. I don't need that. Like, I don't need to be able to make paintings with a paintbrush. I don't have too much anxiety about it. Like, what if I don't want it to do this? But I know if I watch enough Bob Ross, I'd be like, actually, if you just let it just do its own thing, I'd be like, okay, I get it now. Yeah, art's a weird thing, because that's the thing. That painting that I have that's still in my room is one that was like celebrated at my school. We had a weekly journal and like a weekly newsletter, and they featured it on. They're like, this is a great version of this, and I was like, I hated it. I was like, what the fuck? I completely screwed up the dimensions. It was meant to like look 3D-ish, and I completely screwed up how I was meant to paint it. It looks nice. It looks fine. Like, it still looks like something the kids painted, in contrast to someone who is classically talented with art. But yeah, it's just an amusing thing for me. So yeah, the main just thing when it comes to film school is it's like with most schools. There are going to be different things you get from it. As much as a lot of people will be thinking, oh, I gotta make sure I'm learning this and learning that, you can learn things whenever. My main benefit that I still proclaim is the friends I got. It's about the friends you make along the way. It's never about the destination. Because for me, the destination's still going. From me doing the stuff filming with my uncle, I have ended up getting a job filming sport, which does sound as mundane as you'd expect, but at the same time I enjoy it. My mate, who I became friends with a couple weeks into uni, that's his job now. He really likes it. It's his only job that he's ever enjoyed doing is just filming sport. It's, mind-numbing and boring because it's sport. Like, we don't care for it personally, actually. I think he actually likes sport. I think he likes basketball. But still, it's like, you can also just put in earphones and just listen to a podcast or music. I listen to music while I film. It's great. I don't have to pay attention to what's happening around me as long as I'm getting good pictures, So that's what's so cool about it. And the thing is, too, this is stuff that inspires me to want to work more in the field of filming, not exactly live streaming or event sports and event filmmaking, but in terms of I could film concerts if I wanted to. For me, I like the idea of, again, making films eventually and seeing how this is my stepping stone into it. I could still get into it to some degree at some stage in life, Like knowing that my friend Caitlin was able to make a film in her 30s and, go to America and make a film. Like, that's cool. I want to do that. She only made a couple of short films. I mean, that's still experience and that's still something. There's production value to it. There's still well-made short films. There's still art and talent there. For me, it's, look at films I made as a teenager, and now for the past 5 years I've been filming sport. Hey, not for the past 5 years, but the past couple of years I've been filming sport. Just mundane, everyday shit. But it's teaching me how to use technology. It's teaching me how to communicate with people and to make contacts, I've become friends with people who are film historians and people who film sport. Broadcast journalism and film historians. And I kind of want to be a film historian, but I also want to make films. So it's cool because art is such a developing field. So if you're interested in film school, my suggestion would be find a school that best serves your educational purposes to begin with. If you want to do this and you want to do that, then do that. Along the way, you'll meet the people, you'll discover new things, and you'll evolve yourself. You always need the base platform thing. Like, my base platform was go to Swinburne, do media communication. I was lucky that I found my people in my first week. People I connected to, people I related to. In contrast to my friends from high school, they were vastly different. They were like, these are people who I actually really enjoy hanging out with and chatting with and get along with because of film, because of what we love, And I'm still meeting new people who have the exact same passions in different areas and different ways of expressing them, but still we all have the same passions for film. So, yeah. I benefited from that. I'm even still friends with some of my lecturers as well because they're regular people like you and me who just go to work and teach. And it so happens that I just appreciate hanging out with them and talking to them. Get a beer with a bloody teacher, why don't you? You can, legally. I mean, unless you're in America. Legal drinking age at 21. So yeah, by the time I was 21, I was done with uni. Literally. Was I? Was I? I can't remember. I have no idea how old I am. Anyway, thanks for watching. That's my suggestion. Yeah, the best thing, course of action, base plate, go from there. Again, if you don't want to do that, just learn how to do it yourself. Buy a camera, buy some books, read, watch a bunch of shit, and yeah. Obviously, you're not going to get it through osmosis by just watching a bunch of documentaries or watching a bunch of films and being like, oh, man, I really like Goodfellas. I want to make that, and then just not doing it well. Because sometimes you need to be tech savvy and understand craft. You know, it's not all just watching and repeating. It's watching and repeating, and then repeating and repeating and repeating and crafting, and then bam, you got a thingy. Okay, good luck. Bye.